to hear that. We are a country of 220 million people. We also are situated on the cusp of three different and distinct regions: South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and on the mouth of the Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean. Pakistan is also the only access point for all of the Central Asian republics. So if you look and hear about many Tans, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, I'm sure you must be thinking, what does Tan means and why do you have so many Tans in that part of the world? So Tan actually is originally a Turkish word which basically means the land. So when we say Pakistan, when translated literally, it means the land of the pure. So this is a name that was invented, at the time of Pakistan's creation in 1947. But Afghanistan is the land of the Afghans. Kyrgyzstan is the land of Kyrgyz. Uzbekistan is the land of Uzbeks. So that's a very brief introduction, and I really would like to hear more from you in terms of what is on your mind and what are the questions that you have. And this is going to be a no-holds-barred conversation, so please don't be too polite to ask, not to ask hard or tough questions. And I'm sure you would also be interested in me personally, in terms of how did I find my diplomatic career and what is my background. Well, I can also very briefly tell you that I was also, of course, a student like you are today, and who knows, someday, one day, some of you would also be carrying your country's flag as US diplomats all around the world. I started off with law as my major, and that was in many ways my first love and passion, and it still is with me in many ways, I would say. So I went ahead, I did my law, and then started practicing as an attorney in Pakistan just for about 2 years. But in our system, one of the most prestigious careers that anyone can pursue out of university or school is to join the National Civil Service, which is very difficult and very competitive to get in. So I took the national exam and then, of my own option and choice, joined the Foreign Service of Pakistan, because I always saw one thing similar between being an attorney and being a diplomat. In both cases, you actually present a case. For an attorney, you represent your client, while when it comes to being a diplomat, you essentially carry your country's brief around the world, and you present your position and perspective on issues. So that's what got me attracted to foreign service. Since law was my passion, so I decided to further, while being in service, I did my master's in international law, and then I did my PhD in international law also from Japan, where I started my career. I learned Japanese language. I went back and trained there. I got to school there, did my master's and my PhD from Japan, and I was also the first Japanese-speaking ambassador from Pakistan to Japan. And I was ambassador in Japan before I came here. So that was about me. About the Pakistan-US relationship, well, it's as old a relationship as Pakistan itself is. In fact, in some ways, our political contact started even before the birth of Pakistan. And our leadership looked to United States it's for a variety of reasons, because of a British colony, Western legal model, Western systems and structures, Western education, English language, and you would probably be surprised to hear that Pakistan, for all practical purposes, is an English-speaking country. We still conduct our business in English language. We do our pleadings in courts in English language. Our constitution is written in English language. And our civil service, our military, our SOPs and laws, all are in English. So that connection kind of made it much easier for us to transition from being a British colony to being a friend and ally of the United States. And Pakistan at one point in time was actually described as the most allied of the allies for the United States, because we were the only country that was simultaneously member of both the CETO, which is the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, and CENTO. Back then it was created basically to contain and watch over communism, expansionism in the world. Over the years, I could say that our relationship with the United States has been in many ways defined by one Cold War and two hot wars. Cold War was what the world inherited after the Second World War, from practically since after our independence from 47 onwards until 1979. That's when the Soviet Union, so that was the Cold War, where we were allied and partners with the United States with the intent of being on the democratic side of the world divide, and working to the extent we could to contain communism. But that was more a partnership and alliance of intent and not operation. Whereas when the 79 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan happened, that's when that intent got translated into actual action and real operations. It was a hot war because although you didn't have your boots on the ground, US and Pakistan partnered together in supporting the Mujahideen, so-called, who were resisting the Soviet occupation. And US, for all practical purposes, around 1988-89, declared victory against Soviet Union, which resulted in the collapse of the Soviet Union, without United States firing a single bullet and without United States losing a single soldier. But the implications, and I come from that generation of Pakistanis who had seen Pakistan of pre-invasion Pakistan and the post-invasion Soviet invasion Afghanistan. I mean, it changed Pakistan in so many fundamental ways. And I think both United States and Pakistan made mistakes. We saw proliferation of weapons in Pakistan. We saw proliferation of drugs in Pakistan. We saw the rise of extremism in Pakistan because of, unfortunately, some of the misconceived policies of the time. And that really changed. And then as soon as the invasion was over, Soviet Union withdrawal, United States also washed its hand off the region of Pakistan and walked away. And then that's where there was this break in the relationship. And in 1990, the Pressler Amendment, because of Pakistan's nuclear program, sanctions were imposed against Pakistan. And things kind of became dull in the relationship, although I say that, there never was and there never will be a dull moment in Pakistan-US relationship, and damned we are when it is going well, and damned we are when it is not. The next episode, the real hot war, started in 2001, post 9/11, although Pakistan had absolutely nothing to do with neither with the attacks here nor with those who perpetrated those attacks. But we just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, because next door the Afghan Taliban and others were hosting Osama bin Laden. And then that's where the second hot war started. And this time around it was different, because for the first time US had actually boots on the ground. with numbers reaching as high as more than 100,000 US troops there. And that changed the dynamic of the relationship. That brought Pakistan very much into the mainstream news cycle here. It brought Pakistan also very much into the domestic political considerations here in the United States. And the 20 years of Afghanistan have been frankly a burden on the relationship. It contributed to the growth of distrust. It in many ways created misgivings on both sides, because Pakistanis felt that the United States has used us, while the United States felt that we were not doing what we were telling the United States that we were doing. And that, I think, in many ways burdened the relationship. And then more recently, I think things have changed. Pakistan extended full support and cooperation to the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And today, I would say the withdrawal, except for that one unfortunate episode towards the end, where 13 US soldiers were lost. Overall, the withdrawal process was peaceful. Not a single US soldier was lost since after the signing of the agreement between Taliban and the United States, and the withdrawal today is complete. Now, how it plays out is something that perhaps we can cover in the question and answer session. I really would like to stop here, because I want to hear from you in terms of how you look at Pakistan. What is it that you want to know more about Pakistan? What concerns you most? And what intrigues you most? So I'll stop here. Thank you very much once again for joining me and my colleague here in being part of this conversation.
I'll just make a quick announcement. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your remarks. Found them very interesting, and I hope the students here did as well. We know that you have been talking about this with your teachers for a little bit now, and that many of you have questions already prepared. I hope some of you had questions sparked while listening to the Ambassador as well. We have a microphone in the back, so as you wish, please head up there, and we'd be happy to get your question answered. But why don't I take the first question just to get things moving here. One of the big things, we were at an event last night at Dr. Malik's house, and many of the questions focused on the U.S.-Afghan relationship, U.S.-Pakistan relationship based on the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan. Can you talk a little bit about how that is going to redefine the U.S.-Pakistan relationship, why it's important, and where you, as a country, would like to see that relationship go?
Well, thank you very much. I think, I thought that I was going to get spontaneous questions, so if you guys have prepared questions, my God, please be kind to me and don't raise very hard questions, But coming back to the relationship and the impact of the situation in Afghanistan, I think today both US and Pakistan are on the same side. In the past, we did have differences on tactics. We did have issues in terms of what US wanted in Afghanistan and what our long-term strategic objectives in Afghanistan were. But today, United States wants peace as much as we want to see peace in Afghanistan, because really, I think if things go south in Afghanistan and what we have today whatever structure we have there unravels, it is going to lead to an outflow of refugees. It is going to result in the creation of ungoverned spaces, governed spaces that would be then occupied by terrorist elements, as in the past, and then countries in the region, fearing conflict and instability, would once again start hedging in supporting one or the other group, And that's a scenario that we want to avoid as much as the United States wishes to avoid. Because for US, I think the biggest concern and threat is the threat to the US homeland, and any terrorism that can potentially come out of Afghanistan that could threaten United States. So investing in peace, we are convinced, is the best counter-terrorism investment, not just for United States, but for every country in the region, including the extended neighborhood. And on that score, US is very keen to see human rights. US is very keen to see women's rights. US is very keen to see an inclusive government where all, because Afghanistan is a very diverse country. Afghanistan has many ethnicities. Afghanistan has various religious denominations, and a long-term sustainable government can only be formed if all those various segments of the Afghan society is represented in the Afghan government. And that's what the US wants, that's what we want. Only day before yesterday, we had, I don't know how familiar you are with, but we have an extended troika in place. An extended troika includes United States, Russia, China, and Pakistan. And these are the most important stakeholders in that wider neighborhood. And these countries all are scared of things unraveling in Afghanistan. And therefore they are ready to work, and they met in Islamabad and they came up with this joint statement which essentially reflects that consensus amongst these countries on peace, inclusion in Afghanistan. I think the challenge right now really is that Afghanistan faces a very dire humanitarian situation because they have had drought. Secondly, even if Ashraf Ghani's government was in place, Taliban have replaced Ashraf Ghani in government. Even if the former government was in place, if US had stopped the financial support that it was providing to Afghanistan, any government would have collapsed. Now, that's the point, So because of drought, there is no provision of edibles there. Because of the financial restrictions, there is no money that is flowing into Afghanistan. Because of the limitations on trade, there is very little trade and revenues being generated. So all of that actually puts the present government, the so-called Taliban government, in a very, very tough and difficult situation. And if the humanitarian situation gets out of hand, we are going to see a refugee inflow. And just for your information, I think Pakistan is the only country in the world that has hosted over 4 million Afghan refugees for over 40 years. And we fear that if things unravel, we are going to see another wave of millions of refugees. But those refugees are not just going to stay in Pakistan or Iran or Uzbekistan or Tajikistan. They are going to go beyond. And that's a situation that we need to. So we are working. We have seen some good signs. International community has pledged huge amounts of money. It's now the question of transacting that or putting or distributing the assistance. Luckily, the international community has pledged not to condition humanitarian assistance to other conditions or conditionalities. But really right now, time is of the essence, and there is need to move in fast these humanitarian supplies. So that those conversations. But with this kind of, I should say, alignment of perspective and position on Afghanistan, and with Afghanistan out of way as a burden on the relationship, I would say, there is really a very strong and compelling case for a close US-Pakistan partnership, because US is actually today, as we speak, the largest export destination for Pakistan. US is also the third most important source of foreign remittances and inflows into Pakistan. We have a Pakistani American diaspora, over 1 million Pakistani Americans living, and they are all very educated, mostly professionals, and they act as a very important bridge. Our bureaucracy, our civil service is trained in this country. And all of these factors, and we are a vibrant democracy, we may not be as good as the American standards, or we may not be as good as your democracy is, but going by where we are and the regional standards, and I think to the east of UK, Pakistan is one of the most functioning and vibrant democracies in that part of the world. And then I think that also makes a strong case for a close partnership because of the ideals. And in some ways, you asked me about how the withdrawal would impact. I think because our relationship was essentially viewed through the Afghan prism all these 20 years, that somehow, took your focus away from Pakistan itself. So the ups and downs in the situation in Afghanistan unfortunately impacted the relationship with Pakistan. We were friends before Afghanistan. We were in fact the most allied of the allies. We hope to be friends with the United States after Afghanistan, although of course there are other factors also at play, and we are witnessing very profound geopolitical changes in our part of the world, with China emerging, with India also regressing in some ways, and that is also going to impact. But our bottom line really is that we don't want our relationship to be seen from any other prism. We don't want it to be seen from Beijing prism. We don't want it to be seen from New Delhi prism. We don't want it to be seen through the Afghan prism. And we, in our own right, are a very important country. We are the 5th largest country in the world. We are a nuclear power. We have influence in the Islamic world. We are an important player and access point for Central Asian countries. We are the largest, or one of the largest countries on the Asian Rim, and that makes Pakistan a very important country for our two countries to work together to promote peace and stability. I'll stop here.
Hi, my name is Bella, and I was wondering, in Pakistan, given the general climate of the globe right now and the COVID-19 pandemic, how the medical care is in Pakistan right now and how the U.S. kind of plays into that.
Thank you. I think that's a very important question, and that's a challenge that all of us are grappling with. And I must say that Pakistan, for a country, for a poor country, for a developing country, for a country with a fragile system of health, I hate to confess, but that's what it is. We have done actually remarkably well in tackling COVID in Pakistan. As we speak, for a country of 220 million, our total infections are still in the vicinity of 1.2 million, which is, as compared to your country, is really minuscule. Our deaths are in the range of about 28,000. people who died, because maybe some people say that we are not doing as much testing as you are, so maybe our numbers are not as high, but you cannot hide deaths. So our infection rate and death rate is also, and this is not something that has happened automatically, and we were just discussing this before getting into this conversation with your teacher, and I was telling that, the government, the speed at which we brought together the government and coordinated the national effort, with provinces also joining in, because in our system, health is a devolved subject. It's with the states. And everybody came together, and the Prime Minister and the government was also very clear-eyed. They were both nimble in taking policy decisions and very flexible in making adjustments when those adjustments were needed. And also took hard decisions, because initially, there was a lot of pressure, because there were many thousands, millions, I would say, of Pakistanis stranded in different parts of the world. So there was this pressure for the government to allow for their repatriation, and government said that we will not take anyone until we have the arrangements in place where we could quarantine people, where we could put them. And also we came up with this idea of smart lockdowns, micro lockdowns. Then if any person was discovered with COVID, the health people will go to that house, will mark that house, will remove that person and force them to go into quarantine, and the entire family is into quarantine. So it really, I think, happened, and we are very grateful to United States. Frankly, we are actually, I think, the largest recipient of US vaccine gifts. Today, I think over 23 million vaccines have been gifted by United States to Pakistan. There are more in the pipeline. We have also purchased from United States. I have myself negotiated with Moderna as well as Pfizer for purchase of vaccines directly also. Overall, I think we have administered 114 million doses. 46 million are fully vaccinated. I think 57 or some million are partially vaccinated. So we are at it, and it's still, fingers crossed, because these different waves, I can tell you, have been lethal, and we have to be careful still, but we are more confident today than we were in the beginning that we have that infrastructure in place.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Owen, and my question is, what is the school life like in Pakistan, and how does it differ from Bow High School?
Here, well, we don't have as beautiful auditoriums as you have here, in most of the schools, but school life is perhaps the same. I mean, kids are starry-eyed in Pakistan as are here in United States. They want to conquer the world as much as you want to conquer the world. I think over here what I see different is that although the county boards and the city boards have much greater freedom in devising the curriculum, but still the programs are more or less aligned across United States, and there are no multiple education systems in place. While in Pakistan, unfortunately, and that's a challenge that the government is dealing, we have the British system, we have the A-level systems, we have the local matriculation system. So there are multiple streams in place, and sometimes students, don't get the kind of level playing field because some streams are more difficult than the other. So if you get an A plus in stream A, which may actually be equal to a B plus in another stream, So when you get into the next level and then you want to get into good schools and universities, that can sometimes work to your disadvantage. But overall, and then of course the difference also is between urban schools and the rural schools. And sometimes, unfortunately, rural schools are not as well equipped as some of the urban schools are. And that also puts the students, I would say, at a disadvantage. And our schools are also obviously across the board not as well resourced as your schools are. But I can assure you that our high schoolers are as bright as high schoolers here in this country are.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary McCarthy. Excuse me. With most of our students here being born after 9/11 and then just witnessing us pulling out of Afghanistan, what do you say is the most important lesson for our younger generation to learn from these experiences?
I think that's a very important question, and right now I see that reflection and introspection is going on in your country, and both in the Congress as well as in the media, there is this debate on what lessons can be drawn, what mistakes were made, and how those mistakes could be corrected and avoided in future. And I think in getting into that exercise, and I know that maybe this week Senator Duckworth has proposed the creation of a non-partisan commission to basically investigate the circumstances, not just that led to the withdrawal, but the whole, covering the entire 20 years of what happened and how it happened. But I think in all this exercise should not be self-exculpatory, and it should not lead to finger pointing, frankly. I mean, as a Pakistani diplomat, I can tell you that sometimes we get this sense that, that we are being unfairly blamed for the failures. We didn't ask United States to go to Afghanistan. In fact, Pakistan supported the effort in so many ways. But then, while you may have your own, situational concerns, we are there, we will be there tomorrow, we will be there day after tomorrow. Our concerns may also be different. So what is really important is to basically be sensitive to the history and culture of the place where United States is going into. First of all, the best policy is to avoid these physical invasions if they can be avoided. But if that must be undertaken, then basically it is always good to consult and learn from those who live in the region, because they understand the situation much better than those who come from outside, And those sensitivities would then basically make the policy choices more real and closer to the truth on the ground. And I think in future, what is really important is to avoid passing the blame and to learn the serious lessons. And if US can undertake that exercise where those good lessons are drawn to see where mistakes were made, I think your generation and the generations after yours will learn and not commit those same mistakes in future.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gracie. Does the Taliban pose a threat to Pakistan?
I think more than Taliban, unstable, conflict-ridden Afghanistan poses the biggest threat to Pakistan. If I take you back to September 2001 or maybe early part of 2002, over the last 20 years, Pakistan has lost more than 80,000 of our citizens to the conflict because of the spillover of the conflict into Pakistan. We have suffered more than $150 billion in terms of the cost of war that our people had to pay. And if the instability and conflict continues, I think there is no other country except Afghanistan that has suffered more on account of the conflict in Afghanistan. And then that's what we want to see end. So whether it is Taliban or another government, because we are always accused or blamed for being the safe haven for Taliban. No, we are not safe haven for Taliban. We are safe haven for Afghans. Because today, those who are running from the Afghan Taliban government are also coming to Pakistan. I don't know if you are aware, as we speak, Pakistan has extended full support to all those who wanted to get out of Afghanistan. We helped more than 30,000 people evacuate from Afghanistan, including from 39 different countries. We helped United States and US citizens also in evacuating from Afghanistan. There are still many who are transiting in Islamabad and Pakistan. So they've all, because we are basically the exit point. The Tajiks closed their borders, Uzbeks closed their borders, Iranians closed their border. The only border that remained operational was the Afghan border with Pakistan. And that's the natural exit point for all Afghans. And for us, they are like our brothers, but no one wants to leave their home and hearth unless they really have to. And we are very, very keen to see that we create peaceful conditions in Afghanistan. We avert the humanitarian emergency that we see unfolding. And if we can do that, that is what will help us. That is what will help Afghans, including Taliban.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lexi, and I was wondering what are some of the core values of the Pakistani culture?
Oh, we are on the highway of different cultures, because as I said, if you go to some parts of Pakistan, you would see how different cultures and stream of invaders have influenced the evolution and development of our cuisine, our music, our dresses, our architecture, because over the last 7,000 years, the Kanishkas, the Kushans, the Aryans, we were the highway of people who were coming in from Central Asia, from Turkey, from Persia, into India, going right up to New Delhi and Calcutta. All of that really influences our cuisine, our music, our culture. And that also in many ways makes us a very accepting, embracing society and culture. And I tell you, our biggest strength, and this is something, that you can only experience if you actually go to Pakistan and travel in various parts of Pakistan. You will feel the warmth and hospitality of the people of Pakistan. And unfortunately, because of these past 20 years, I was talking about the cost that we have paid because of the precarious law and security environment, and because of the travel advisory, people could not go to Pakistan. And they could not feel the warmth and hospitality. In my 33 years of diplomatic service, I can tell you, I have not come across anyone who has lived or spent time in Pakistan and has not come back falling in love with the place and the people of Pakistan. And I think that's our biggest strength. and that's part of our cultural fabric, our cuisine. I don't know if you have tried kebabs, if you have tried tandoori chicken, if you have tried curry. In Washington, I was telling our friends yesterday that the Washington city government and the mayor of Washington DC declared 9th of November as Pakistan Food Day in Washington DC. So I would maybe encourage the Bow city government or town government to maybe declare one of the days during the year as Pakistani Food Day, where you can actually experience our exotic food and our spicy and hot food, you know.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jess, and I was wondering what it's like for a woman in Pakistan on like a day-to-day basis versus possibly a woman in America on a day-to-day basis.
It depends on what part of Pakistan you are in. First of all, I think contrary to the perception that many here have, and again, that is because many people see us as a country which is very much like Afghanistan when it comes to women rights, when it comes to women participation in the affairs of the state, government or business. Oh my God, anything but that, anything but that. You know, Pakistan has had its woman prime minister. Pakistan has had its woman foreign minister. Pakistan, we had foreign secretary. We have at least at any given point in time, you know, there are at least 5 to 7 women who head our ministries or who are under secretaries of the State Department, like or the Agriculture Department and similar ministries of the government of Pakistan. Our women are represented in the parliament, not on the reserve quota, but they come through the contested elections, you know, like male candidates. So I would say that in some ways, some of the leading anchors, some of the leading entrepreneurs, you go to the bar, some of the leading attorneys, we have combat women fighter pilots, we have special services group commandos from women commandos also. So they are represented in every walk of life. Yes, there are places, I must say this also, where because of the non-availability of schools in the immediate neighborhood or immediate vicinity, people find it inconvenient to send their daughters to school, not because they don't want them to be educated, but somehow they feel unsafe to send their daughters to far-off places to get education. So that in some ways become an impediment in allowing them to achieving their aspirations. But short of that, I think in our system, I have not seen any discrimination. And in fact, some ways, you know, we have ambassadors, women ambassadors, we have our women police officers, we just had a 3-star general, a woman, we have our doctors. So it's really, I would say, our women are like you in the high school or like the US woman. They may not be as perhaps visible as women here in this country are. But overall, I think our women, and I say this because I have served in Japan, and I can tell you that I never came across a woman in a position as high as heading a division in their ministries or heading any one of their ministries. While in Pakistan, we have women all over.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Haley, and I was wondering how both political and natural environments affect the resources available for your country?
Well, it affects in every way because, I think for us to pursue our aspirations for economic prosperity and for us to pursue our dreams for development, we need to see peace. And when you live in a difficult neighborhood where you have a difficult relationship to the country on the east, which is 6 times larger than you are, which is 10 times larger than you are in terms of size and population, and I mean India, then that basically forces the country to divert a lot of its resources away from those development-related undertakings to defense-related undertakings. And similarly on our west also, we have unfortunately seen nothing but conflict over the past 20 years with, and even before that, over the last 40 years, with refugees flowing in. So that also impacted the choices that stopped us from connecting with the rest of Central Asia, that undermined our approach to broader regional integration also. The trade is not flowing the way it should in our part of the world because of difficult political relationships. So that's why, we in Pakistan and particularly the present government is pursuing this vision of a peaceful neighborhood, because we are absolutely convinced that without a peaceful neighborhood, we will not be able to achieve our dreams of prosperity and growth for our people.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Sean, and I was wondering how successful do you think Pakistan is going to be in the next few years?
I hope that Pakistan grows as rapidly as we can, and we are determined to put our economy back on track. We are determined to work our way around securing peace in our neighborhood, and whatever we are doing in Afghanistan is really part of that effort, because we see that we really have to have peace around us before we start to have peace within us. And that's why we are reaching out to India, we are reaching out to Afghanistan. We have a good functional relationship with Iran, we have a close relationship with China, and we want to have a very good and strong broad-based relationship with the United States.
Great, thank you.
Howdy, sir. How's it going today? I'm surprised no one has asked you, how's your day been so far?
I got up early and sorry? Oh yeah, it could be. The life of ambassador, it is not easy. It is particularly crazy because of the COVID times. There are days when I get up at 2 in the morning for a meeting, for another meeting at 3:30 in the morning, another meeting at 5:30 in the morning.
Superman over here, huh?
Because of the COVID, we operate in different time zones, So one fine morning, the foreign minister wants to have a virtual meeting with the ambassador in Washington, D.C. And the time zone is such that when they are up, we are asleep. And then this has really, I think, impacted our work in so many ways. And I think in future, when diplomats would get assignments in different parts of the world, one of the things that they would want to look at is the time zone that they are going to go to. Because many occasions I have to, and I'm fine, I can stay awake and then attend a 2 o'clock or a 3 o'clock meeting. But what makes it really worse is that then you have another meeting at 7 in the morning. So you cannot even go back to sleep. because you have to stay awake to be able to make that meeting. So that's really, so by that standard, it's been a very nice and easy day so far.
Oh, well, that's good. But now for the main question. How is Pakistan's environmental footprint so far, and how are y'all gonna decrease your carbon footprint for the environment and world climate change?
Oh yes, that's important, very important, and that's a key priority, not just for the government, but for the Prime Minister himself. He is an avid environmentalist. He has taken very, very forward-looking, ambitious positions on environmental issues all his life. Pakistan actually, and that's where the contradiction comes in. We are one of the most vulnerable. We are one of the top 10 vulnerable countries in the world, and yet our emissions are actually less than 1%. Even the voluntary commitments that we have made, we were supposed to go up to 5%. We have already crossed 9%. We have voluntarily stopped using the coal-based power production in Pakistan, and through that we have actually saved almost 3,000 megawatts of electricity, and we have switched those 3,000 to hydropower generation. So in Pakistan, because we are experiencing and seeing the adverse impacts of climate change, and for us this is not a theoretical concept, this is a real thing that is happening on a daily basis, because Pakistan is one country which is actually hit simultaneously by the crisis of abundance and crisis of scarcity. And crisis of abundance is because the glaciers are melting. And we are fed basically from the water that comes from those glacial melt, And since the glaciers are melting at a rapid speed, so the inflow of water has increased, and we don't have enough facilities to save that water. That's one part, and that is leading to precipitation patterns have changed, so it is leading to floods. And we have seen unprecedented floods. In 2011, we had a flood which basically wiped away 2% of Pakistan's GDP. And then we are also simultaneously experiencing drought in parts of Pakistan, which is the crisis of scarcity, because there is not enough water. So this is different parts of Pakistan are impacted. Even in Afghanistan, one of the reasons why we fear a humanitarian catastrophe is because of this drought that has been continuing for over 3 years, and which is again a manifestation of climate change. So this remains a challenge. We remain committed to doing much more than what Pakistan is required to do as per our international commitments. And for that, we have launched this tree tsunami, 10 billion trees to be planted in Pakistan, and a number of other initiatives. And I know that present the Biden administration is also very strongly committed. But I tell you this, as a climate change negotiator myself for the Pakistani government, I see the US position shift from one extreme to the other extreme. I think it's time that US is consistent, because when there is a Republican administration, they take a different position from what a Democratic administration takes. And that kind of throws a spanner in the works in the global negotiations. I think a consistent US position would really help make things move in how the world deals with climate change in future.
Well, all right, thank you for having me up here. A good place to visit too while being here is the Vernon Farm to go get some awesome scrumptious ice cream, but thank you for having me up here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allie, and I'm wondering who is the most exciting person you've ever met from the U.S.?
From the US? Wow. I think President Trump was very interesting. And I say this honestly. I think I spent some time with him, both in presenting credentials and then during the summit meetings. He was good to be with in a small city.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kate. What is Pakistan's biggest export for the U.S.?
Textiles. Textiles and apparel.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you very much, Ambassador. But before we let you go, I'd like to take one more opportunity to ask you a question. And I'd just like you to explain a little bit about your experience here in New Hampshire, what you've seen, what you're doing, and some of the positive things that are going on here that may tie New Hampshire to Pakistan.
I think I'm going to go to Concord and meet the Senate chairman and visit New Hampshire's capital. I've seen around Manchester, and what really was very interesting and impressive was this visit to the Career Museum yesterday morning, where they have this exhibition on carpets from the Islamic world. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised to see a Pakistani carpet on display there. And I actually promised to send in a Pakistani carpet for display at the Career Museum while the exhibition is on. So that, and I have been driving around thanks to Dr. Salman. He's been very gracious and generous as a host. And then what was, I think, most interesting was to see a large group of very successful Pakistani Americans. It always, is very heartening for me personally to see people of Pakistani descent do so well here and to be important contributing members to their respective communities. And I think that also in many ways tells us about the strength of your beautiful country. I tell you honestly, and I have lived in different parts of the world. I have traveled to many countries. I have experienced even in our own country. I mean, you couldn't aspire to rise to positions that you do here in this country, even if you are a naturalized citizen. And I think that's the biggest strength that the United States must continue to strive to maintain and sustain in future also.
All right. Well, I know bell's going to ring here in a minute, so thank you all for giving us your time and listening to the ambassador. I hope that you found it interesting. And once again, thank you so much, Ambassador. We look forward to continuing conversations about the U.S.-Pakistan relationship.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.